Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Doug Werner. I'm an acupuncture physician, board certified doctor of Oriental medicine for the past 30 years. Currently living in the Florida area, Tampa Bay, and I've done many things over the past 30 years with traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, also naturopath. I started out as a massage therapy practitioner back in the 80s. Seems so long ago now. But I've really come to work more closely with acupuncture and all the wonderful science that's out there that is showing that acupuncture has great efficacy for helping people with their pain, managing their pain. Things that I've been doing in the last 5 or 8 years has been some very specific research on the human genome and how plant-based medicines can affect our DNA. Literally, we can now talk to our DNA to tell it to turn on specific genes. In the case of pain and pain management, those genes that are connected with what we call our survival genes. And with physical pain, a lot of times you have inflammatory conditions. So we're able to actually control that inflammation. So I'm excited about the way in which the direction that medicine is going in these days. And I think quite literally we're beginning to change the face of medicine. We're hearing and seeing a lot of doctors having conversations between themselves, that is traditional Western medical doctors, and our non-conventional or traditional Chinese or Asian medical practitioners. So I have a unique opportunity in the last 5 years to have worked with a great doctor of osteopathic medicine, family board certified practitioner, and between the two of us we've pretty much pioneered a way in which to address inflammatory conditions. I recently brought a formula, if you will, an Ayurvedic-based formula to the medical practice. I do give you guys an opportunity to hear about some of the backstory and why we think it's so important that as we age, we begin to try to take care of some of these conditions. A lot of them are based on what we call oxidative stress and free radical damage. Oxidative stress is not anything new. It's just that the technology and the information and the research is coming out more and more. If you go to pubmed.gov, you'll find probably 120,000 articles just on the subject of oxidative stress. Okay. So oxidative stress is something that we all have. Why do we have it? Because we breathe the air that we breathe, we eat the food that we eat, we live in the environment that we live in. And there are so many oxidative stressors that are out there, from pesticides to the kinds of emissions that are in our environment, and the kinds of foods that we eat are not giving us the kinds of proper nutrition that we really deserve. In addition to oxidative stress, there's a whole subject on free radical damage, but free radical damage really has another conversation, and that is why we want to take a few minutes and talk about the aging process. So as we begin to discover why we have certain kinds of pain, it's because we age. And why is it that we age? Because it's a natural process. Think about this as an example of aging. You have an apple and you cut it in half and you put it on the countertop. What happens to it? After about 10-15 minutes, it starts to turn brown. That is oxidation, and that's what happens at our cellular level. And with that oxidation comes free radical damage. Free radical damage leads to inflammation, and that inflammation leads to over 200 aging conditions that most of us are experiencing over time. So with this idea of how to mitigate inflammation or inflammatory conditions, we know that steroidal anti-inflammatories work, but they don't work they have a short shelf life. And so what we have found in the traditions of Ayurvedic and traditional Chinese medicine is we have some effective natural sources, natural solutions when it comes to inflammation. And these are a couple points that I'd like to touch on. So I'd like to share a little bit about the history of Ayurvedic medicine. It's quite unique and how it relates to treating inflammation. And of course, aging, because we all age because of our inflammatory conditions. Ayurvedic medicine has been around for about 5,000 years. And what I have found with particular formulations, we call them synergistic formulations, the way in which more than one herb is combined to give a greater effect. We have found clinically that there are several formulas out there that can help to treat and reverse the damage that comes from free radicals, the damage that comes from inflammation. So when you think of inflammatory conditions, think of arthritis, think of rheumatoid arthritis, think of cardiovascular disease, think of COPD, which is a lung disease. There's a variety of things that most people at certain ages begin to get diagnosed with. Probably the biggest one for me personally was periodontal disease and how it affects my cardiovascular condition. So we're talking about plant-based medicine. It's something that's very close to my heart because I've been researching it now for the last 45 years or so. And what I have found is that there's great efficacy in plant-based medicine. Now, somebody had asked me earlier today, well, when can I see the effects of using plant-based formulas? I can tell you this, that you didn't age overnight. And so the way in which this works is over time, it builds up in your system. And so what we want to do is help as many people as possible with a variety of different Ayurvedic protocols. But there are several, again, that I like to use mainly in the clinic to treat the issues of oxidative stress, free radical damage, and inflammation. So what's interesting is that in the last 4 years, we have been looking at a lot of peer-reviewed articles on the way in which Ayurvedic medicine synergizes the medicine delivered, so to speak. These Ayurvedic formulas have a specific way in which they deliver the good news, if you will. So what we're looking at here lately is something called NRF2. That's a nuclear regulatory factor protein. It's an NRF2 protein that exists in our bodies already, but it remains dormant until it's activated. Well, we have recently found an Ayurvedic-based formula that can actually activate NRF2 in our bodies. And I'd like to share a little bit more of that with you. NRF2 activation, basically what we are doing is we are waking up the NRF2 protein in our body. Why is that important? Well, we have found, as well as other science researchers out there have found, that NRF2, when it's activated, can turn back on those survival genes that we lost track of when we were about 20 years old. And this is part of the aging condition, if you will. If we can slow down or reverse the aging process by activating NRF2, then we stand a chance to be able to find that youth that we had at about 20 years old. So in addition to survival genes, the survival genes themselves are in charge of other genes, including inflammatory genes. What we have found is that those survival genes can actually send messages to our cells and specifically to our mitochondria. Our mitochondria is the place, the storehouse where we make all of our energy. And it's important that we keep the mitochondria healthy. If mitochondria is kept happy, then a variety of other things that are supposed to go on in our bodies will also remain healthy and intact. So it's not just the physical body that we're addressing, it's the mental body, it's the emotional body, and perhaps sometimes it's even the spiritual body. It's that unseen force that allows us to get up every single morning, to move about our day, and to have restorative sleep at night. So there's many things that go on in this human system that we're pretty much not aware of every day. We just jump out of bed and we go through our day. But what happens at some point when we begin to feel the effects of age, these are the things that we'd like to address clinically, and we believe that we have found something that is going to give us great benefit. So inflammation by itself is not a bad thing. You know, we need a certain amount of heat, but what we really want is a better thermostat, because when we have a better thermostat, then we know that when we need heat, we can turn that thermostat up. When we need it to not be as much, then we can turn it down. Our survival genes are in charge of all of these processes. So if we can treat the survival genes, that means if we can give them the signals that they need to then do their job, then it's going to have a trickle-down effect. And if you look at the number of inflammatory conditions that exist, they are all precursors for so many of the aging conditions that we have. And there are so many people out there who come to me with those aging conditions, so I try to educate everybody to share this bit of wisdom with them so that they can have a better way to look at life, a better way to look at their condition, and not to feel bad about it, but to do something about it. To be proactive, I think, is the key. And I try to give everybody the tools to be more proactive about their health. Okay, so I basically have given you some education about a variety of things that go on that are necessary, and perhaps I have led you enough to understand that there is a, quote, fountain of youth. There is something that does exist out there that we think is powerful enough to address a lot of these conditions that we see clinically. About 5 years ago, I came to know something about Dr. Joe McCord. He was the developer of a product called Protandim. And what we know now after 5 years, and clinically, because we've documented about 1,000 patients, is that we know that the combination of 5 Ayurvedic-based herbs, plant-based herbs, are having an 1,800% better effect on our bodies and on our inflammatory conditions. Protandim is something that was developed over the past 20 years, and Dr. Joe McCord, who is a research doctor out in Denver, Colorado, was featured on an ABC investigative report that was done by John Canonis back in June of 2005. So Dr. Joe McCord, back in 2005, was interviewed on ABC News by John Canonis. John Canonis went to visit with Dr. McCord because he had heard that in the last 40 years, Dr. McCord had been the discoverer of something called superoxide dismutase, basically an enzyme that exists in our body, but again doesn't get activated unless we do something to activate it. So Dr. McCord put together a 5-herb-based formula, and they call it Protandim, and there are a variety of patents on it, 25-year patents, but what we have seen clinically is that it is doing everything that Dr. McCord's original work said it would do. Over the past 5 years or so since that video came out, we have been using Protandim in our clinic to help patients either stay off their stronger steroidal anti-inflammatories or not to get on them at all. We have seen cardiovascular patients turn around. We have seen diabetes patients turn around. We're not saying that we can cure, but with Protandim, we have been able to change the way that people feel. A lot of people report that they are joining the gym because they've got more energy now. And you know, when you have more energy, you can do a lot more things. So for me personally, I think that Protandim is a great formula. It has great potential. We're going to see a lot more conversation about it in the future. But for now, Protandim is something that is good for your body. It's good for your health. So I'd like for everybody to know more about Protandim. If you'd like some information, I'm happy to give that to you. If you'd like to order Protandim, you can go to my website. It's mylifevantage.com/science, the number 4, and life. So